Buongiorno a tutti. Siamo qui per questo momento di confronto e ringrazio il direttore generale di EURATEX, Dirk Vantyghem, perché ci introdurrà in questo momento dedicato alla strategia dell'Unione Europea in materia di prodotti tessili sostenibili e quali sfide ci aspettano nell'affrontare quelle che sono le indicazioni appunto date dalle autorità europee. Io sono Stefania Solitro e lavoro per la Regione Piemonte. Noi siamo qui nell'ambito di un progetto di filiera dedicato appunto al settore tessile che la Regione sostiene ormai da tanti anni con la collaborazione di Unione Industriale Biellese, di Biella, e con il supporto operativo della nostra Agenzia per l'internazionalizzazione del Piemonte, CEIPiemonte. Volevo ringraziarvi, volevo salutarvi, volevo portare il saluto chiaramente delle nostre autorità, dell'assessore Ricca, che è l'assessore per l'internazionalizzazione e per le politiche di internazionalizzazione del Piemonte, e volevo lasciare ora la parola alla dottoressa Sandra Bellini dell'ufficio stampa di Filo, che interagirà con il dottor Vantyghem per questo momento di confronto. Grazie.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. We are here, we are honored to have with us Mr. Vantyghem, sorry for my voice. Welcome to Filo, Mr. Vantyghem. You are the Director General of EURATEX, the voice of textile and apparel in Europe. So, what's new from Brussels for the industry? In particular regarding the compliance with the new regulation and legislation by the Commission and by the European Parliament.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here for me the first time at Filo and to join you this morning and to try to explain to you very briefly what is happening in Brussels. Because the short and simple answer to your question is there is a lot happening. Actually, the European Union is preparing a new future for the textile industry. And we'll try to keep it maybe short, and then we can have some, exchange, maybe some questions. But essentially, the European Commission has launched 1 year ago a dedicated strategy for the future of the textile industry. It's a strategy that is pushing the sector to become more sustainable, more transparent, to promote higher quality, to promote recycling and durability in the industry, to reduce the environmental footprint of our sector. And this strategy is part of a bigger plan. The bigger plan is called the European Green Deal. You may have heard about this Green Deal already. It's the biggest political project of the European Commission. When they started almost 4 years ago, decarbonizing Europe was the main political priority of Mrs. von der Leyen, Mr. Timmermans. And within this Green Deal, they said, we need to focus on textiles because textiles have an important environmental footprint. So this strategy, which was launched 1 year ago, is all about how can we reduce the environmental footprint of our sector. At the same time, this strategy is also recognizing that textiles and fashion are a very important sector of the European economy. And being here in Italy, for sure, I can confirm, look around, Italian textiles, fashion is a very strong component of our European industry. And the European Commission in this strategy recognizes that and says we need to make sure that the textile industry in Europe is here to stay and can remain competitive. a link to that, the strategy is also looking at, I would say, the global dimension, because textiles and fashion is a very globalized sector. Actually, officially, is the second most globalized sector of the European economy. So we need to understand the global game of competition and fair trade in the textile industry. So in other words, we need to make sure that all the players involved in textiles and fashion comply with the same rules, respect the same standards, so that we have a level playing field, a fair competition within the wider industry. So the strategy, again, focus on sustainability, focus on competitiveness, focus on global fair trade, was launched, the strategy was launched 1 year ago as a vision. What is important for all of you to know is that since 1 year, this vision is being translated into legislation. So it's not just a political statement from Mrs. von der Leyen says, I will do something, and then, you know, it's put. No, the vision is becoming a reality, and we currently have, we often talk about 16 pieces of legislation, actually it's even more, so different pieces of law which are being negotiated today between the Commission, the European Parliament, the industry, member states, which are translating that vision of sustainability, circularity, etc., into a new framework. I often say the textile industry used to be a very unregulated sector. It will become a very, very regulated industry. It makes many of our companies nervous because what will it mean? What will be the cost of complying with those new rules? And what will my competitors do? Will they also comply with those rules? And how are we going to control that everybody complies with the rules? So that is what is happening. We are today in the middle of negotiating, as I said, this new legal framework. The timing it's a matter of 2, 3, 4 years when this whole new framework will be established. So let's say it's not, you know, it's not exactly clear. It depends on the negotiations. It depends on many things. But let's say that between now and 5 years, all the companies operating here will need to understand and adapt the way they are producing their fabrics, their yarns, the way they communicate with their supply chain. So again, the rules of the game in the textile industry are fundamentally changing. We need to make sure that our companies are ready for that.
It's a great job. I mean, it's really, and of course, sustainability is a word of our time. And here at Filo, we have been discussing it from several points of view, from traceability to social responsibility, from circular economy to smart production processes. But in your view, which are the main challenges for the companies? What they should focus on, even to comply with the new regulation?
In general terms, the main challenge is to, I would say, reconcile sustainability and competitiveness. So how to make sure that our companies, again, in the room here today, are making this transition towards being more sustainable, make the digital change, etc., and at the same time remain competitive. That is the critical point we need to work on. How are we doing that, or what is our message as EURATEX when we are talking to the Commission, etc.? Essentially, maybe three points, 3 or 4 points, if I may. The first point is about the quality of the legislation. So, as I said, there will be a lot of new rules coming. This is okay. This is okay if those rules are good rules, meaning if those rules are understandable for the company, or manageable, or coherent among the different rules, or measurable. So having a new framework for the textile industry as such, as a principle, is a good thing, but everything depends on the quality of that legislation. If the Commission will tell from tomorrow, this jacket has to be made from 100% recycled fibers, but there are no recycled fibers available. These kind of discussions we have today. So how to make sure that the rules will be reasonable, manageable, supporting the SME is the first most important question on which we work every day. The second element we are pushing is to say, okay, we have the new rules, companies will need to change, we need to help the companies, the SMEs, with support, with funding, with technology, with research. We need to help those companies to make that transition. So we are working on some programs, projects, try to lobby to have money, European money, to help textile companies in research, in finding new people, educating the workers, organizing recycling capacity through the Rehabs initiative. So we need to make sure that there is a package of, a strong, important package of support for the companies. 3, and it's sometimes forgotten in Brussels, if you want this whole change to be successful, there has to be a bigger market for sustainable textiles. Today, the consumer does not want to pay for a sustainable product. It's too expensive today. So in Brussels, which is a bit of a bubble, sometimes a little bit disconnected from the world, from the reality, the consumer wants to buy, will pay. No, the consumer doesn't have the money, certainly today, inflation, you know all the issue. So we need to think, how can we increase the demand side for sustainable textiles? That's why we need to talk a lot with the brands. They have a big responsibility in that, to be more transparent towards the consumer. Today we have almost 100 different labels, sustainability labels, almost 100. Eco this, certified that, green. It's a mess. The consumer doesn't believe it. It's too many. So we need to discuss between the industry and the brands, how can we be more transparent? How can we create clarity? How can we increase confidence towards the consumer so that the consumer will be willing to buy a more sustainable textiles? So having a bigger demand for sustainable textiles is critically important. And the fourth condition, quality rules, support the industry, bigger demand. The fourth condition is this global dimension, which I mentioned before. If only my European textile companies are making this transition, making the investment, the change, etc., and the competitor outside is not doing the same, we have a problem. We have a competition problem, of course. So I often say in presentations, this EU textile strategy, this EU vision has to become a global textile strategy. So we need to have our colleagues from China, from Bangladesh, from Brazil, etc., they need to come on board, and we need to have the same standards, we need to have the same transition, so that we keep the markets open. We import, no problem, but we need to make sure that everybody follows making that transition, to maintain the level playing field. And even, if I may add, this whole plan is about making a contribution to saving the planet. If only my 200,000 companies here in Europe are making the transition, that will not save the planet. So we need to have the bigger volumes, the bigger production volume in Bangladesh, in Turkey, in Pakistan, etc. If you want to make a real impact from an environmental perspective, also they need to come on board. So anyway, it's a long answer, but it's a lot of elements. But again, I want to insist, if we manage those elements well, this whole strategy can be an opportunity for the European textile industry. Because in the end, what the Commission is trying to do, and they even told us so, this is a way to, this whole strategy, putting the rules, creating transparency, raising the bar. This is a way to protect the European textile industry. Because European textile industry typically stands for higher quality, more durability, high, of course, design, innovation factor. So by saying, essentially, in the future, we only want to see high quality, sustainable textile products on the European market, it's an indirect way to favor, to promote European textile companies. So that is correct, but once again, everything depends on how this vision will be implemented into practice. So again, the quality of the legislation, the support, everything that I said before. But if we manage well, then it can be, and I'm personally convinced it should be, an opportunity for the European textile industry.
And even to underline the leading role of Europe in some of the most important topics for our future, maybe the planet is one of them. And one of the points to improve the competitiveness of the European companies is research. And EURATEX is partner in many international projects. One of them is REGIONE Green Tax, with Regione Piemonte, Regione Toscana. Can you tell something about the project, this project in particular?
Sure, yeah. So, as I said, it's part of our vision, of the EURATEX plan, if you want to not only focus on the regulation and the policy work, but also, I would say, practice what we preach. And so put into practice through programs, practical programs, helping the companies to make this transition. And so we are managing or involved in several European funded initiatives. One of them is called REGIONE Green Tax, and we have some partners with us, which is an interesting initiative in many ways. Essentially, it's a fund. It's a 12 million euro program, helping SMEs to invest in this transitions towards sustainability and circularity. So basically, we have identified a number of SMEs around Europe, and we give them money, we give them advice, coaching, to make this transition, to introduce a new technology, to develop a new market. So different concrete projects, but all aimed at making those SMEs, more sustainable, more circular. On top, we are, and that also makes it interesting, the project has a very strong regional focus, and it's interesting in today's event. So we are working and we are trying to mobilize regional authorities to engage more in this support, in these activities towards the textile industry. And it's important because the textile industry in Europe has that very strong regional focus. You have here is one of the Lombardia, is one of the Piemonte, is one of the important textile regions, the north of Portugal, center of Italy, other regions in Poland. So we have those clusters, and we have strong cluster organizations also in those regions, working with the textile SMEs. And so Regio Greentex is basically bringing these players together, again, organizing training, coaching, helping the SMEs. I am talking to the regional authorities of those textile clusters to discuss, okay, what we do today, what can we do tomorrow? And I may add another initiative which we are launching next month, which is about support to upskill and reskill the workers in the textile industry. Because again, making sure that the workers have those new green skills, those digital skills. So we are launching a new program under what is called Pact for Skills that we have with the Commission, where again, we will work with regional authorities around Europe to help them develop what I call a regional partnership between the authorities, the industry, and the education providers, business schools, technical university, to develop a specific reskilling and upskilling plan for the textile industry. And this is an initiative we will launch it next month. And again, the regions will be a strong player in that. We have other initiatives focusing on market surveillance. I do want to mention the Rehabs initiative, which is more than an initiative, it's actually a new organization that we are launching in 2 weeks' time, early October, which is, it's called Rehabs, so Recycling Hubs, which is a new organization that will bring together companies from the entire textile value chain who are interested, more than interested, willing to invest in increase the industrial capacity for textile waste recycling in Europe, which will become a very, very big challenge. Because of the legislation, we can no longer burn or send our garments or send them to Africa. So we will have 7-8 million tons of textile waste per year. So we need to manage that textile waste. And so we are building an organization, it's like an investment club, involving the largest European brands, chemical companies, recycling companies, who will work together and build up to 250 recycling plants in Europe. And so Rehabs is the entity that will coordinate this entire multi-billion investment plan. So these are just some initiatives, and again, is all about, from our perspective, is all about beyond the legal and the political work that we do. It's also trying to develop concrete solutions, concrete activities that will benefit directly the companies to help them make this transition successfully.
Thank you very much, really. I have no other questions, but maybe there are questions from the audience. Everything is very clear, you are very clear, and you designed a long path for the textile industry, but we all hope it's really an important and successful way to have. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks
Grazie.
a lot, really.